Hi, everybody. My name is Susan Marshall. I am the author of Mom's Gone Missing, When a Parent's Changing Life Upends Yours, and your host for our monthly compassion chats. We meet in this casual format the fourth Tuesday of every month at 6 o'clock Central. I know the time change has made a difference for some of you, and I apologize for that, but 6 o'clock Central, the fourth Tuesday of every month, we are recording these sessions. So for those of you who have joined us, if you don't want your mug, turn off your camera. And also we'd ask that everyone mute as we're having the conversation, and certainly unmute at the end if you have a question or a comment, something to say, please unmute before you join us. I am very thrilled, pleased, honored, excited to welcome tonight's guest, Heather Janes. Heather is a dementia care specialist with the ADRC, the Aging and Disability Resource Center in Jefferson County. I have gotten to know Heather over the course of the last year or so. She was one of the first champions of the book. And through Heather and others, she has introduced me to the ADRC network throughout the state of Wisconsin. I learned that her role, the dementia care specialist, is unique to the state of Wisconsin. So Heather, thank you for joining us. I love that you're sitting outside. We like to start off these talks by having just kind of a get to know you a little bit. What brought you to the work that you do?
Well, first of all, Susan, thanks for having me tonight. It is beautiful here in Wisconsin, so trying to enjoy some of this weather before it's gone again. What brought me to the role of dementia care specialist is kind of a long journey. It actually started back, I think, when I was in kindergarten. My aunt worked in a nursing home, and after AM kindergarten, she'd bring me to the nursing home to hang out, and I would color with those with dementia and spent a lot of time with them and fell in love with those individuals. Called them grandma, just kind of natural. And as I grew up, I naturally gravitated towards nursing homes, working in them, and studied psychology in college. I ended up working as a interim director at a senior center, worked at assisted livings, worked with individuals on a workshop to help them gain work skills and knowledge, and then ended up finding the dementia care specialist position open. And I knew that that was something I really wanted to do. I was passionate about helping people with dementia and their caregivers. And that's exactly what this role does. So the role as a dementia care specialist is really to provide education, resources, and support to anyone living with memory loss or dementia, diagnosed or not, and anyone supporting that person. So whether it's their spouse, an adult child, a friend, neighbor, you name it, the community, that's who we're providing that education, support, and wraparound care to. So it's just been a wonderful experience getting to do this position, and it's kind of got endless abilities to be able to continue to support the community.
Well, and you have been such a tremendous compiler of information and resources that you send out, not just monthly or weekly, but it's like every couple of days you're creating memory cafes and programs that are being presented, not just through the ADRC, but through related agencies and partnership groups that you do. So everybody, Heather is a tremendous promoter and a truly valued resource for all of us who are dealing with this. Heather, you and I talked about really from the very beginning, the time we met, the fact that this dementia care specialist role is unique to the state of Wisconsin. Can you tell us more about why that is and whether there's opportunity through this chat or other partnerships to expand this role beyond the state of Wisconsin?
Yeah, so Kristen Felton at the Wisconsin Department of Health Services really created this program from the ground up here in Wisconsin. And it started solely, I believe, with just 5 dementia care specialists as a pilot. It was grant funded in the beginning, and so it was just something to try out and see how it went. And from that 5, I think we've become 33 or maybe even more at this point. And so it's just been a continual addition, and our governors have been phenomenal with making sure that the dementia care specialists remain in the budget. so that we can continue to have all of our counties and tribes covered. And so right now I know that there's 18 more dementia care specialists on the docket of coming on board. So I know other states have been interested, and I know other states have really attempted. And I don't know if it's just that the funding hasn't been there or if it's just not enough interest. I know that there's some states that don't even have dementia or memory loss in their aging websites. And so I've done a little bit of exploring just out of curiosity, and they don't even mention it because it's still taboo. Like the word cancer used to be. They didn't talk about it. It was the C word. Well, now it's the D word or memory loss, and we don't talk about it, which is completely opposite of what we're trying to do as the dementia care specialists and other community partners like the Alzheimer's Association and Alliance of Wisconsin. We're all trying to make people aware of what dementia is and reduce that stigma so that people can go out in the community without that fear and rejection. So, honestly, I think every state should have the dementia care specialist program. I think it's highly valuable. Those who have come in contact with it, have used a dementia care specialist or the ADRC, have found it so helpful and so empowering that, I had a lady, a wonderful lady, she cares for her in-laws. She has her kids, she lives on a farm, and she was able to take her first vacation in a long time. And she took 10 days and finally felt that she had enough knowledge and enough resources that she was able to do that. And she never would have thought that that would be possible while caring for two in-law parents. And so to me, it's just such a powerful program because we see our caregivers thrive from this program. We see them learn even the littlest communication tips, or that it's okay to be angry at the person, that it's okay to have those off days, but to not feel alone throughout the process. And so I think that's a huge piece of it that we try to make sure everybody's connected through this program as well.
That's phenomenal. And as you know, Heather, that's really one of the reasons we kicked off these compassion chats, was to help the caregiver community, however we define that, to realize and to really experience we're not alone. And as I often say, we bring resources like yourself to this group, not only as professionals, right, trained, but who have such a heart for this work and for all of us. One of the things that continues to be a theme, and again, one of the reasons we started these compassion chats, is that it can be very intimidating to approach an agency or a group like the ADRC. How do we do that? What questions do we ask? In the role of caregiver, as you know, through all of your work with families and my own experience, the last thing we want to do is pick up the phone and try to speak when we have no idea what we need to ask. We don't want to prove we don't really know what we're doing, but that's it. And so I think that stops a lot of people from reaching out to people like you and to the ADRC. Help us understand the best way to do that.
So first off, I do a lot of information on, sorry, there's a loud truck coming. I try and put a lot of information out on our website so that anybody who might be a little hesitant can always check out our ADRC website first. I've got a dementia care and we have a caregiver tab. So you can kind of start there and kind of look through things, see if it's a good fit, see if it might be something that could help you. I try and do a lot of radio ads so that it's that friendly voice on the other side that says, hey, I just want to help. I do a lot of outreach on our Facebook page as well to just kind of make sure that those resources are out there. But it is scary calling and not knowing what you want. And I get a lot of that. I get a lot of caregivers saying, I'm calling, but I don't really know why. And so I just really kind of start having that conversation of, does the person you're providing care for have dementia or memory loss? Yes. Okay. Are you struggling? Are you feeling stressed? Are you overwhelmed? Yes. Okay. Would you want a support group? Would you want a compassion chat? Would you want somebody to come in and maybe help provide some care? Are you looking for maybe a day program, or maybe you're looking for someone to join them at the senior center? We kind of start with those baby steps. And it is far so common that I get those calls of, I don't really know why I'm supposed to call, but so-and-so, like my neighbor, said I should call. They said you can help. but I don't know what I need help with. And that's totally fine. And I embrace that because I feel like, I might not know what they need either, but we can kind of start with those baby steps of, are you feeling stressed? How are you feeling right now? And how are you feeling last week? Okay, it's gotten worse. Well, let's see what we can do to relieve some of that stress and get you some help that, could really be beneficial. And whether that's communication tips, education on progression, education on different resources available, financial funding, we can really kind of explore, is it transportation, meals on wheels? Is it, that there's neglect and abuse? Is it that there is, long-term care needs? So we really kind of try and explore and then refer out to the other areas and networks that we feel that could be beneficial as well.
Heather, you mentioned that the D word, right, is kind of like the C word was. And I think that's absolutely true. We don't really have many forums like this just to come together and talk about stuff we're not quick to acknowledge. The whole denial aspect of this can go on for a very, very long time. And even some of your questions, how are you? Oh, I'm good. I'm good. It's your voice might be quivering. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. It's hard to admit that you're struggling or you don't know what to do. So I appreciate the fact that you have a lot of information out there. Many of the caregivers currently are probably not heavy technology users, right? So they may go on, and look at the website perhaps, or look at Facebook, but oftentimes it's really kind of shooting blind. And so the voice on the other end of the phone really becomes the first either open door or closed window. Would you say that that's pretty true?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think if I am welcoming that call and embracing it, they're going to want to open up a little bit more. But if I start by answering that phone call and I'm kind of having my own bad day, they may be like, I'm never talking to that person again. So yeah, definitely. I have to take that into consideration, to keep my emotions in check and make sure that I put that call through to voicemail if it's not going to be a powerful phone call and helpful for the other person.
That's really, really critical. One of the things that we talk frequently about in this forum is just knowing when to ask something that's more perhaps pointed to a diagnosis. One of your questions, has your loved one been diagnosed? I don't know. So when in your experience, is it wise when you feel like it's gone beyond, he or she's just getting older? When is it important to begin at least initiating the conversations that it might be worth getting a diagnosis? And if that's the case, where do you go? I know you said earlier today, your whole day today was doing memory screenings. Tell us a little bit about that and your best advice for caregivers or family members who want to maybe investigate further, and the individual who's affected may go, nope, not interested in doing that.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So a lot of folks obviously come to me because there's memory loss or dementia either thought of or a diagnosis already. So those who don't have diagnosis, I can work with those individuals the same as I could with a dementia diagnosis. The only thing that diagnosis really is helpful with is, for my sake, is that I can know what path to kind of go down, because Alzheimer's is different than Lewy body, which is different than frontotemporal, which is different than Parkinson's and dementia. They're all a little bit different. So if we know what dementia they might have, it's a little bit easier for us to provide the right resources and tools. So if somebody doesn't have a dementia diagnosis, we might start with a memory screen. It's a 10-minute tool. It's really a conversation piece so that we can kind of see if there's any type of impairments. And if there is, we always encourage, and even if there isn't, if we're getting a baseline, or if there's some impairment showing, we always encourage them to send that results to their doctor. And I can fax that over so that they can have an additional conversation, have a follow-up appointment, so that they can really rule out, is it something simple like a urinary tract infection or vitamin deficiency, or is it really something more serious like dementia or hydrocephalus or tumor? And without being a doctor or a nurse, I don't know, but I've seen enough cases that I can go, well, it looks like dementia, but we also know that there's many things that can mimic dementia. And so, we do a little bit of digging around too, just to kind of see like how long has it been going on. But a dementia diagnosis can mean, or even going to the doctor to rule out dementia, it can mean a whole lot, because somebody might just need medication to get back to that normal cognitive functioning again. And wouldn't it be nice to know that it was just a vitamin deficiency versus dementia? And so I really try and swing it back around that way, that it might not be dementia, that it could be something super treatable. And so for those who don't want to get a dementia diagnosis, or who don't want to go to the doctor, that's really common. And all I can do is support those individuals the best that I can. And typically, they end up at the hospital due to a fall or some other medical condition, unfortunately. But we can't force people to go to the doctor. There's many people, healthy people my age, your age, who still won't ever go to a doctor. So just because we want to know if they have dementia or not, I mean, it's hard. It's a hard one, because so many family members are like, no, I want them to go. I want to know. Well, we can suspect that it's dementia for some folks at a certain point, and we just continue to do the best we can. There's a lot of generalized tips and things that we can do for those individuals, and there's still plenty of resources and tools that we can help provide somebody with or without that diagnosis.
It's interesting to know that you have other explanations perhaps for memory loss, particularly if it's sudden or if it's not been going on for a really long time. At what point, Heather, do you recommend people get a neurologist involved? We took Mom to a neurologist because we had seen, her declining for long enough that we knew it was more than just simple aging. We also had Dad's 10-year Alzheimer's journey. And in his case, the decline was so gradual, they could deny it for a very long period of time. In Mom's case, it's like her memory fell off a cliff. So we ended up taking her to a neurologist. Do you recommend that? At what point, if you do?
So I actually have a lot of individuals who see their primary care physician, and the primary care physicians might not see their concerns or validate their concerns. And they might just say it's not a big deal, like you're just aging, you're just getting older, it's okay. And so anytime any individual comes to me and says that, and I'm like, oh, you've got like this big laundry list of symptoms and concerns, and they're not validating or taking any of that into consideration, and they're like, no. And so I either recommend a different primary care physician, it might be time for a different doctor, but also at that time, it's really a good idea to see a specialist. And whether that's a neurosurgeon, whether it's neuropsych, whether it's a psychologist, psychiatrist, I really encourage them to see someone additional or diagnostic clinic, just so that they have that peace of mind. Because obviously, if they're coming in, they might be a hypochondriac, but chances are they're not. And this list is truly of their concerns. And so it's really important for them to be heard, and for their concerns to be validated. So I really encourage at any time that if their physician doesn't agree with them, or their answers aren't being answered, or their questions aren't being answered, that I would seek out another specialist at that point.
So do you act as a liaison between the family and the PCP?
I do when it comes to memory screens, and if they really need me to consult with a physician, but those physician consultations are pretty rare. I do talk with a lot of the social workers and nurses more often, because the physicians are so busy. But I have been trying to connect with more physicians to provide more clear communication and referral processes back and forth, and offered, any services that I can provide more clearly and more sufficiently.
I can imagine that could get a little bit ticklish, right? Because we're learning, it seems like every week, more about the disease, more about the variations on the theme, right? When is it Alzheimer's? When is it Lewy body? When is it, dementia, mild cognitive impairment? And what does that mean, right? Depending on your physician. So I can imagine that that would be a ticklish spot for you to be in, which also leads me then to the notion of cost. What does it cost someone to talk with you or to work with you as a dementia care specialist through the ADRC?
So, Susan, all of my services are free, as are all the other dementia care specialist services through the ADRC. So the only time that somebody would pay something is if there's a class that there's a cost of, which is pretty rare, or if we refer out to like for transportation or meals or another service out in the community, there may be cost to that, such as adult day service and respite programs. But for consultations for Adele or anybody on the call to call me 100 times a day, it's free. Please don't call 100 times a day. Hopefully we can get that done in a couple calls, but if that was the need or the case, no, I work with people from beginning to end. So the moment they have concerns and they call me, I'm there for the entire journey. I do that wraparound care for the entire family, the entire support network. And I let them know that, I'm here till the end of the journey and even afterwards. There's a lot of folks that I've provided some grief counseling for afterwards, and they sometimes turn around and say, I want to participate in a support group so that I can be there for the next person, or I want to be a volunteer and help provide that respite for the next person, because I know how hard it was. So I definitely make sure that they know that you may not call me for another 6 months or a year, but I'm here. So keep my phone number tucked away, so that when you do need me, you can call. And a lot of folks will do that.
What a comfort. And I know that I had the privilege of joining one of your book clubs, and you said that these book clubs really begin to function as support groups because you're not talking specifically, your focus is external, right? On a subject matter, a book or what have you, that isn't quite as personal, but you end up telling stories and you end up getting to know each other, which is exactly what we're hoping this compassion chat offering accomplishes as well. So thank you. You also, I think it's important to point out to our group here, yes, you provide your dementia care specialist and the elderly population or that particular need is what you serve, but the ADRC serves the entire human population, right? From children all the way through the elderly.
We do, yeah. So we've got transition programs for like our high schoolers, and then it's all the way up from high school. And there's no age limit, really. And it's nice that there's a lot of different programs for anyone with disabilities or aging, which we're all aging every day. And so the ADRC is just a phenomenal program. It's amazing. Before I worked at the ADRC, I always told people, go to the ADRC. They can help you. They can help you. They can help you. And I was like, I have no idea really what the ADRC does, but I know they can help, and they're a really good resource. When I got to the ADRC, I had my door open. I was doing my training for the Dementia Care Specialist program, and I was like, oh, the ADRC does so much more than I ever knew. And I was so excited that I had referred all those people in the past to the ADRC, because I was like, all those people got amazing help that I had no idea that they could get. And so I highly recommend starting with the ADRC, even if you have no idea what you're calling for, even if you have no idea if you qualify for anything, even if you're just, I don't know, do I qualify? I mean, we can help with Medicare, we help with benefits, with Social Security, we help with aging, transportation, so leisure rides, we do grocery trips, we do VA trips. I mean, it is endless on what the ADRC can provide. We've got a nutritionist for their home delivered meals. She does like teaching how to cook 1 to 2 meals for those smaller family homes. So there's just so much and something for everybody. And so I mean, I tell my mom all the time, just call ADRC, just see if they have something for you. And it's just incredible at how much resources and things you'll find at the ADRC just by calling that one number.
I think we need to get the village people to do an ADRC, however we do that. That's awesome. One last question before we open it up to the people with us to ask questions. One of the greatest challenges, I think, for caregivers and anybody in a family trying to deal with Alzheimer's and dementia is so often the guilt that comes with you try to be, kind, and you try to be calm, and sometimes the individual you're dealing with is either crabby or stubborn or just flat out resistant, and you get upset, you get mad, you get frustrated. Ugh. How do you help people deal with that pent up, built up emotion that too often just settles into guilt?
So that is super normal as a caregiver to feel angry, guilty. All of those feelings are normal. And so it's what you do with that feeling, which is important. So if you were angry and you're starting to shake your loved one, that's the wrong way to do it. If you're angry and yelling, that sometimes happens. But I think when you're feeling angry and you're feeling that guilt, I think it's best to, take a step away. As long as the person that you're providing care for is safe, take a few moments to yourself, whether it's, outside, whether it's in the shower, whatever you need, take a few minutes for yourself to kind of regroup. Because when a caregiver is working with somebody with dementia, oftentimes those behaviors are due to an unmet need. So it's either their environment is upsetting to them, so it might be too hot, might be too cold, they might need to use the bathroom, maybe they're hungry or thirsty. It might be an unmet memory being met, so they might be missing something and they're not able to communicate that. It might be the caregiver pressing the buttons and really triggering some of this. So, if I'm the person with dementia and Susan, you said, "Come on, Heather, you got to take your medication. Don't you remember? Don't you remember? Don't you remember? You got to take your medication. Come on, come on." And so many of us do that without even thinking about it because it's just human nature to move quickly. But for someone with dementia, I don't remember. B, it takes me about 20 to 40 seconds sometimes to process what you're saying. But when you say it again, I'm now taking another 20 to 40 seconds to process it. And when you said it again, I'm taking another 20 to 40 seconds to process it. So while you're just getting mad, I'm still trying to process the first thing, the second thing, the third thing. So I think for caregivers, some of that education on communication tips is really important just to help them understand a little bit of why the person might not do what they're doing right away. Sometimes, I hear individuals say, well, I told them to go to the bathroom, get their shoes on, get their coat, and meet me in the car. Okay, sometimes we have to look at that and go, that's too many steps. And maybe it's get your shoes on. And once you have your shoes on, now go to the bathroom. Okay, you went to the bathroom, now put your coat on. And sometimes it's breaking up those steps so that the person isn't feeling overwhelmed and that the caregiver now knows, okay, each step has been met, now we can go. And so sometimes it's changing that frame of mind, slowing down, breaking it into steps. I've got a 4-year-old, and I think if I were to tell her the same thing, go get your shoes on, go get your coat, go to the bathroom, meet me in the car, she probably would forget her coat or her shoes or didn't go to the bathroom because she heard one thing and she held on to that one thing. Really similar with someone with dementia, not that they're a child, but their brain is now sometimes working as a child's brain can. And there's a lot of similarities in that. An adult needs dignity and respect, no matter what stage of dementia that they're in. But really, some of that guilt, it's okay to feel that anger and frustration, but knowing how to appropriately handle that. And I love to role play with caregivers just to kind of work through some of that because I know it's really hard. I know it's really challenging to hear the same thing over and over again, or to not have everything done as you think it should be, or they won't change their shirt and they've worn it 10 days in a row. Sometimes is it bothering us or is it bothering them? It's not bothering them. Is it really that big of a problem? And so sometimes it's just changing our emotions and response to things. And that takes time and it's not easy. But I love to talk with anybody about that and work through some of that if that anybody has any questions when it comes to that. But it's a totally normal feeling and response.
Yeah, and it is something that we have touched on almost every time we come together for these chats. And Adele really kicked it off in our first session, talking about really mentally preparing yourself. And it's counterculture. You're right. It's go, 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 check, 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 get it done, get it done. I've got 15 minutes. I got to get mom or dad to this place, and then I have to go make dinner and take care of the kids and get out, it really is helping people take a breath, recognize that oftentimes it's less about what you say and even the tone of voice and pace, but it's about what you're telegraphing emotionally, right? If you're frustrated, upset, impatient, that's not going to sit well, and that sets off a conflict, sometimes even before a word is spoken.
Yeah, they feed off of our body emotions, our body tone, or any language that we have. If we come in to the room and we're stressed out and angry and our arms are folded, well, they're gonna feed off of that feeling and they're gonna feel angry and they're not even gonna know why. But because you're angry, they're gonna be angry. But if you come in with a smile and you're happy and you're just kind of go with the flow, they will be a little bit more happy and go with the flow. So it's amazing what just a fake smile can do. Even if you don't feel like it, just put on that fake smile, burns more calories.
Well, and that's so important. And it really kind of goes to this whole, how can I be authentic as a caregiver and show up for real for this individual? Oftentimes we talk about going where they are, but I'm so mad. And so I'm going to put the smile on, but normal, as you said, totally normal. And Adele has given the advice too, is to really budget the amount of time that you intend to spend together, because that for that period of time you can be there, you can manage yourself, and you can leave your loved one with a sense of feeling seen, heard, valued, and truly loved. So, these words are so easy to say. Boy, they're hard to do sometimes.
They
I
really
want to
are.
open it up for questions, but before we do that, Heather, in all of your years of experience in doing this and the hundreds of families you've talked with, what are the one or two key things that you would like us caregivers to take from this and really to remember as we leave this meeting and go back to caregiving?
Ask for help. Don't do it alone. You're not alone on this journey. And forget about the checklist. I hear so many caregivers going in and I've got to take out the garbage and I got to pay the bills and I got to make sure their meds are done. Go in and give them a hug. Forget about the checklist. Go in and give them a hug and sit down and eat a cookie, or sit down and do something personal before you start the checklist. And I feel that so many caregivers get into this mode of I gotta do, and they forget that there's a person in the house that they're caring for. And so ask for resources, ask for help, and forget about the checklist.
That sounds an awful lot like compassion to me.
I also hear a lot of caregivers saying, well, they tell me the same story every time. And I'm like, but have you asked any follow-up questions to that? Mom wants to go home. Well, what does she like about home? What was there? What does she miss about home? Is it her family? Is it this way the bread smelled when she walked in the door? Was it the green shag carpet? What did she miss? And I, talk about it. Did she ride her bike down the street? Was there gravel? Was there road? Were there sidewalks? I try and really promote a lot of those beautiful questions that Time Slips has, and really talking about the picture, talking about the statement. There's something that's causing those behaviors. And like I mentioned earlier, whether it's an unmet need due to their environment or a memory, or, a caregiver provoking some of it unintentionally, no less, it's making sure that we're engaging. And sometimes, again, we live in such a fast-paced world that we don't have time, or we think we don't have time. But thinking about if you sat down and actually talked about that statement or that question or that thing that they're frustrated about, and you were able to redirect them into a happier place, it would take less time overall. You give them a snack afterwards. They're busy with a snack. They're in a happy place, and you get a few extra minutes to do whatever you need to do as a caregiver. Instead of getting so angry and frustrated about the situation, and it keeps doing and keeps building, And now you've just exhausted both of you. So yeah, I do that a lot. I do encourage reminiscing and taking in the moment and really diving into some of the questions and repetitiveness, because they're saying it for a reason. You know, the brain, yes, it's progressing in the dementia, but they wouldn't be saying it if there wasn't something to it in their heart. And so for me, let's talk about it. I was at a lady's house a while back, and she was a biology professor. She recently passed, and it was a family meeting. All the family was sitting around the table, and they're talking about moving them. And she's touching my arm and just stroking it and talking about these biology equations. Everybody's missing it, and I'm talking with her. Oh, is that an equation? You know, what's it an equation for? And she's just giving me more numbers and more letters, and I'm trying to engage in that conversation with her, and the whole family was super annoyed. You could tell, like why are you, like, come back to the conversation. But she was having a conversation, and it was meaningful for her that someone was understanding where she was talking from. And so, you know, she could have easily become very upset, very aggressive verbally or physically, because no one was listening to her or paying attention. But because someone was engaging with her, even though the whole conversation didn't make sense to her and she couldn't follow along with anything else, I kind of grasped what she was trying to talk about. And so for her, she stayed calm the whole time. So sometimes it's just a matter of refocusing too, I think, and giving the person a little bit of that attention and time, which we often so feel like we don't have time for.
True. I'm going to throw out one more angle, as when someone is going back to the same story over and over again, it often, for me, I find that it helps me to know where they've settled in their memory loss in terms of, or where they've digressed or progressed, however you want to look at that, so that when you understand where they're spending a lot of their mental time, of where their digression has gone, it will allow you to zero in on more meaningful things to talk about.
That so Adele, how do you find out where they're at?
How do I find out?
I have an idea, but I'm wondering how you would find that out for somebody.
Well, so first of all, some of them have had the testing that gets you some of that, but I find it out more through just asking them about things that they're interested in, or things that, so, I was thinking the other day about something that I did when I was 20, and this, they will react to certain things in the time frame, in the age or the stage of their life where they're most comfortable, because they still have more memories in that, because the last things learned are the first things lost. And so going backwards, that helps me to listen, if I'm really listening, but you have to be really listening and engaged. That helps me to zero in on things. And then I will test out a few ideas of things that they might have said to me over time that will help me get at something, or change the conversation, or just grow the conversation for that matter. What's your idea?
I would agree with that. I love that. I also will ask them physically, like, how old are you? Because sometimes an 80-year-old will say, I'm 35. They'll sometimes say I'm 16. So you kind of know at that moment, oh, we're not in today's world. We're not in this decade's world. We need to talk about when you were a child. And so sometimes, just asking how old you are really throws off the caregivers, because they're like, oh my gosh, why did they give that age? Or, what year is it? Sometimes I'll even ask that, and they'll give me 1940s or 19. It's interesting just to kind of see where they're at. So it does make it a lot easier. And I want to go home. Well, who's waiting for you at home? Is your mom, are you getting in trouble because it's after dark and your mom's not, your mom's out there waiting for you? So there's all those little things,
Yes.
There was, my husband's coming, he's on the train, he's coming, and I gotta be there. I gotta be ready. We hear all that. Okay, well, let's go get some cookies and milk and let's talk about it. And he should be here soon. And by that time, hopefully some of that's gone, right?
So I got to jump in here and just say, hey, wait a second now. I think I'm 25. Does that mean I'm on the road? Right? That's fascinating to me. I never would have considered that they would have offered an age, and then what a tremendously rich conversation that might offer. I will say thank you all. Heather, thank you so very much for joining us. You're just a tremendous wealth of knowledge. We will include Heather's contact information on the website, susanamarshall.com. Next month, we have Barbara Bustad, who's lovely, lovely lady. She's a daily money manager. So she gets into that whole area of, you know what, it's none of your business, leave my money alone. So she'll be very interesting and a tremendous resource for us all. susanamarshall.com for the schedule. We will have past recordings of these chats if you'd like to go there to take a look. And Mom's Gone Missing is a resource, a story that most of you will relate to. Heather, again, you've been such a champion of that, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you again next month. Good night.
Thanks.